Hello and welcome to another edition of Cadence Fishing TV. I'm Keith Easton and today we're at Claytons Lakes in Lincolnshire and we're going to show you some top tips on Waggler fishing with soft pellet for skimmers. It's a beautiful day today. We've just come out of some very bad weather. It's been one of the coldest winters for a long time and the water's still clear. It's a lake of average depth of around about 4 feet. I'm just not confident that we could catch very many fish on a pole. It's very clear. So this is when the Waggler really comes into its own, just past that pole distance. And typically this lake, it's got a very big head of very small fish that you might not want to try and catch. So a soft pellet is a fantastic way of avoiding them and catching some slightly better fish, some skimmers, perhaps an odd carp. Carp are really not feeding yet, it's cold, but we will catch some skimmers, I'm sure of that. There's various ways of pumping pellets and getting them how you really want them. I was given a really good tip from a hero of mine, Kevin Johnson at Messingham Sands. He pumps thousands and thousands of pikes every year, and he showed me this and I'll pass it on. Basically, the best thing you can do is to find the right pellet. Now, Kevin has his own, but today I've got some ringers expanders. They're absolutely brilliant. They're available in all the shops. And this is all he does. So, he'll get his pump. He'll put a tiny bit of water just in the top of the pump there, just to help you make a seal. And he'll pump away. Done. And then what he'll do, we'll put them in a bag with all the water, and he'll kind of tickle them into the corner and squeeze nearly all the water out until it's just covered. So you can see there the pellets nearly come to the top of the bag. There's no air inside there at all, and what he'll do then, he'll twist them into a little ball, pop them down on the floor and forget about them. Get rigged up, you know, and by the time you've got set up, I guarantee that they'll be perfect. It's as easy as that. So after about 6 or 7 minutes, by the time you've got a Waggler rod set up, that's how they'll be perfect. You don't need to keep them in any water, they're done. It's as simple as that. A nice big hook, they'll absolutely hide a 14. It's a fantastic bait to fish a nice big hook with. So as with everything, it's horses for courses. And if I was fishing for carp today in this type of a peg, somewhere where I'd be casting up to an island or under a bush, this is the perfect tool. This is the CR10 12 foot number 3. It's got some punch, it's got some power, but it's got a beautiful progressive action right through the rod, and you really can power up and get going. It's a fantastic rod. But we're not going to fish for carp today. Today we're going to fish for skimmers, and that really demands a completely different tool. This is the one I've settled on. For the last 6 or 8 months I've done all my pellet Waggler fishing with this rod, and it really is it's a cracking rod. It's an 11 foot CR10 11 foot number 2. Now it's got a beautiful slim blank and a fantastic action that just screams skimmers. You can't pull hard enough, you know. It's a kind of rod that you could pull and you'll never flatten it out. It's fantastic. It's my perfect shallow water soft pellet Waggler rod for skimmers, the CR10 11 foot number 2. So which Waggler to choose? This is a standard pellet Waggler for carp fishing. Very buoyant, very easy to cast, but not very good for skimmers. It's just a bit too wide in diameter. These particular ones I met myself, they're 8 milli diameter. It's not quite right for skimmer fishing. These I make as well, they're a 6 milli diameter, And when you get a skim on it like this, a crosswind, they're absolutely perfect for laying little anchors on the bottom so as you can keep your bait still. This is something that an insert waggler probably couldn't do, because you'd find the insert buried and you wouldn't be able to control your baits, you know, make it still enough for a skimmer to find it really. It would bounce along and pull under. So I find these straight wagglers really useful on venues like this when you're going to fish for skimmers. These particular ones that I've made have a solder lead wrapped around the bottom. I find it the best way to get them to fly dead straight, exactly where you want them to go. And you can adjust the amount of lead that you use to make the float prouder, so you can put more lead on the bottom and really get it to dig in and stay still. It's the way to go about it. So waggler fishing, mainly 9 times out of 10, you'd string some very small shot through the line, and you'd get a bait to fall really slowly through the water, and that's fine. But quite a lot of the time you'll get nuisance fish like roach and very, very small skimmers, and they'll intercept it. And I like to get it through the layers of water onto the bottom, where I know that there'll be some decent fish actually feeding on the expander pellets that I've fed. So basically all I'm looking for is a very short string of number 8s. That's all it takes really. With all but the very worst conditions, 4 or 5 number 8s, perhaps grouped into 2s, will hold the bait still long enough to get a bite. So that's it's an option that you've always got. You could start with it strung out, and if you get any trouble with small fish, there's a top tip. Bulk up, string it out just like that, and lay them all on the deck. These shots have absolutely no indication on the float as such. They're just anchors, and they pull the float down until it sets perfectly, and when you get a bite, it'll either pop up and slide away, or it'll just disappear. It's a really nice way to catch skimmers. So when it comes to attaching your waggler, what's the best way to go about it? Well, I like to use these Preston Waggler adapters, and the reason I like to do it is these beads, these rubber beads, they don't damage a line like a shot would. And also, particularly with this Preston pattern, they have a round clip for your waggler to sit in, which helps your waggler just sit nicely. Just as you're going to cast, it's sat in that round clip, and it really does help with the casting and getting some accuracy with your casting. Part of the beauty about using expander pellets for skimmers is you can use quite a big hook, and that helps. These skimmers have really soft mouths, and the more hook you can actually get away with, the better. So with a 6mm expander like this one, you can actually get away with a 14. It's a massive hook, but they really don't mind it. Now, the best way to hook them on is to go through the flat of the pellet and kind of roll it round with your thumb until the actual point comes out the other side. If you imagine the pellet as a cake, it's best to go through the side of the cake and then roll it round until the hook point comes out the other side of the cake. The hook's almost hidden completely, and that's a 14, which will obviously help you. The bigger hook you use, it'll help you cast and not lose your bait every time. So there's another tip. When you're going to fish an expander, fish a big enough hook. It's a 14 every time for me. So let's talk just briefly about feeding. How do you sort of kick a peg off and get it set up and ready to go? Well, I like to feed in 20s really. I get 20 nice pellets and feed them in 10-minute intervals really. Don't go mad. We're not trying to lift the fish off the deck. What we're trying to do is keep them nice and settled on the deck, so they're not flying about and you're not going to foul up too many. Nice and settled. So little groups of 20 every 10 minutes. That'll catch you some skimmers, I'm absolutely sure of it. But the fish will let you know, so let the fish dictate exactly how you think you want to feed it. Casting a soft expander is not quite as easy as it might sound. I see a lot of anglers wind the float up to within a couple of feet or maybe even closer to the rod top. And as the cast, the bait will come off. It'll come off 8 times out of 10. They won't know it. They might fish for 5 minutes with no bait on. I'm going to show you how to get a little bit more out of it than that. Basically, what you want to do is leave the longest line possible and still make the cast. So once your expander's on, leave an optimum about 4 foot really. Swing your float out, everything behind you, and it's all very smooth, and off it goes. And make sure that you check your line just before your float hits the water, and that will send your bait past your float. You'll be able to see the biggest item hit the water, which is your pellet, and you're guaranteed it's still on. And one more thing, I see a lot of anglers drop the rod in the water and have a really fast wind to sink the line. It's a big no-no with soft pellets. You don't have to do it. Just a really soft pull, or even leave the line on the top, and you'll get more success out of fishing with a soft pellet. Something that will help you casting is loading your reel properly and having your spool properly filled. Modern reels, a lot of them have like a pronounced lip at the front of the spool. Forget that. You're not trying to load to the front of that lip. You're trying to load to the back. So if you get it somewhere level with the back of the spool, you'll have cracked it. My preference for a reel line for this type of fishing is 018. Here's a useful tip for you. On my rod rest, I've got a little piece of foam that I've soaked with fairy liquid. Now, if you're having trouble like today's skim, today's ripple, with your line floating, it can pull your float about and make it tricky to present your bait. So that piece of foam there with the fairy liquid in it, just drop your rod into it and wind your float back. And as you wind your float back, that degreases your line. It takes all the grease away from your line, and I guarantee you won't have any more trouble. It'll just sink with the merest of twitches. Your line will be under the ripple and out the way. There you go, proof in the pudding. Skimmers on a soft pellet waggler. Get some out and have a go. Well, I've really enjoyed that. Nice net of fish on a soft pellet waggler on a spring day. Thanks for watching.